Scared money don't make money, homeboy. Get it? And we're finally here at the official kickoff video for the Trading Psychology playlist, because if you don't have your trading psychology right, it does not matter what else you do. And the first element you must have is initiative. You have to get up off the ground and start trading. And it actually goes a little deeper than just that. There's going to be quite a few times where you're going to need initiative in your trading career, not just at the very beginning. So we're going to talk about that too. Now, this is a little bit difficult for me because I'm not really the rah-rah guy, as you guys kind of know. That's really not my forte, is to give you a pep talk. I am more the analytical, logical guy that says, okay, this is what doesn't work and this is why. This is what does work and this is why. That's kind of where I excel, I think. And if you struggle with initiative, of all things, just getting started, then I really don't even want to give you a pep talk, but here we go anyway. In this video, we're going to talk about what initiative is, just so we can define it, why you need it to trade Forex, and why it's so critical that you have it. And like I said, there's going to be different times in your journey here you're going to need it. So we're going to talk about that too. And if, after all this, if you feel like you struggle with it and you genuinely want to know how you can get more of it. It's not just as simple as going out and getting more. There's steps you're going to have to take there too. And really the best I can do as far as that goes is just tell you how I became as motivated as I did when I did, and just go from there. So let's go ahead and jump right into things here. The definition of initiative, as I found it on Google, is as follows: the power or opportunity to act or to take charge before others do. Now, I want to break this up into two parts, okay? I want to split it off right here, actually. These last three words, before others do. Take that off and just let's focus on the first part, the power or opportunity to act or take charge. Quick definition, balls. That's what it comes down to. Even if you're a woman and you're watching this, yes, I mean balls. Taking a market that most people would be petrified to trade because they know nothing about it and they fear losing all their money, and saying, you know what, I'm going to go learn it and just go do it anyway. And that's where I'm going to end up putting a hefty amount of my money because I understand the rewards too. Most people, almost everybody you know, doesn't do that. And that's where I want to get to those last three words, before others do. No, I don't mean get there before your friends do. That doesn't make any difference. You're not in competition with anybody else here. But when you make the attempt to become a professional Forex trader someday, you are separating yourself from everybody else. You're becoming an outlier because almost everybody out there, almost everybody you know, is too lazy or too scared to ever take that jump. As Forex traders, as potential wannabe Forex traders, we are not like everybody else. As far as people that at least have some idea what Forex trading is, most people just have no motivation to ever even look that direction, or even worse, I think, is that so many people know exactly what it is but wouldn't be caught dead trading it because they're scared. Forex involves risk. You can lose every last dollar you put into it. I did, 3 times. But I was able to shake it off because there is no laziness and no fear in my game. Now, I've had conversations with people about this through email, and this is only the case with people from foreign countries. They'll say, well, it's easy for you because you're an American. You have that entrepreneurial spirit. It's in your nature. It's in your blood to go after things. And it's really not the case. I don't know if you guys know this gentleman here, Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the more motivational people you will ever meet. If you are ever hurting for motivation, you just click on a Gary V video and you are set. You want to talk about the best rah-rah guy out there, and I don't say that disparagingly, Gary V is your guy. Now, he was speaking somewhere in Scandinavia, and Scandinavians are known for being more reserved and held back. And it's also in their culture to where they don't take as many chances as people in America would, for example. And somebody there, I think talked to him about this or mentioned the fact that, well, it's easy for you because you're from America. And he said, and I can't quote it exactly because I don't think he ever alluded to this again, but it really resonated with me. He said, look, don't be confused by who I am, because 99% of Americans are introverts that don't do shit. And he's right. He's exactly right. As enterprising and entrepreneurial as we are here in the States, most people are just downright lazy. And there are multi-billion-dollar industries that are created to keep us unmotivated, lazy, shitty, and unproductive. And they work. They're really good at what they do. Just remember that, guys. There are entire industries out there that are hell-bent on keeping you down because most people out there are lazy, and they never take that initiative. Now, there were two sides of this, if you remember. There's the lazy and there's the fearful. I'm hoping that if you fall into one of these categories, it's the fearful side, because that, at least for me, is going to be a little easier to talk you out of. Let's examine this a little bit. The reasons most people don't even bother jumping into Forex, even if they're a little bit interested in it, is just the fear of losing everything. And this is no different than any other investment out there, but just the fear of, I think there's a couple fears here. One is losing everything you put in, but two, having that responsibility on you and having you be the one that fell apart. Having that stigma as you being the person that went into an investment and lost everything. I'm not sure which is worse for some people, but that's a real fear, and I get it, but we're going to talk about that. And the other big fear, at least that I have heard from people, is Forex is just too overwhelming to learn, which we're going to definitely attack that too. So starting with the first one, fear of losing it all. Let's talk about what worst case scenario really is most of the time. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this book here, 4-Hour Workweek. Fantastic book. Great book when it comes to squashing fears, because most of your fears are completely illogical. Worst case scenario is never as bad as you think it's going to be. There was a small story within the book, and I actually did a little more digging on this story. Back in the 80s, a guy goes to Ghana to do some volunteer work. And what he doesn't know, or else it didn't happen until he got there, was Ghana just completely started to fall apart. Major turmoil hit that country. And he got stuck there. He couldn't come back. And he was stuck eating this, I guess what we would call like mush, just cornmeal and spinach. And ate that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because that's all that was available. And clean water was even hard to get. So his worst fears of going to a place like this were pretty much realized. And I think he was stuck there for like 6 months. But 2 weeks in, he's like, this really isn't that bad. I don't need any more than I have right now to survive. And I'm having the time of my life. I'm making all these new friends. I learned that I don't need anything more than, mush and a little bit of clean water and some good friends really to survive. And, 20, 30 years later, not only does he look back fondly on his time there, but he knows that if for some reason he were to fall into abject poverty, it wouldn't be that bad. One, he can come out of it. Two, when he was in it, the things he learned and the friends he made were irreplaceable. Now, if you want to actually quantify this in a way, also in the book, he says, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, your actual absolute worst case scenario is 1, temporary, 2, really only amounts to about a 3 or a 4, especially if you're in a developed country right now. Let's be honest. We can get out of it. We're smart enough. We have the resources. We know people. 3 or 4 is as low as it's ever going to go. But the upside, guys, the upside to getting really good at a recession-proof market like Forex, the upside's damn near unlimited. It is an absolute dream for most of us to someday trade Forex for a living. Is that worth the possibility of a temporary 3 or 4 in your life right now? A 3 or 4 that you could easily recover from? Yes, of course it is. So stop worrying about losing everything. Because if I can do it 3 times and still get back on my feet and then finally make it someday, then there's no reason why you can't either. I'm not smarter than you. I just didn't let that fear get in my way. Now, the other reason we spoke about is that it's overwhelming to learn. Not really. Not if you have found this channel. Guys, this is like a college-level course that's not only easy to follow, but doesn't cost anything, and has information that you're actually going to use. Now, for all of you little instant gratification monkeys out there, you're not going to be able to watch 4 or 5 videos and then be able to go out there and crush the market. It doesn't work that way. You're pretty much going to have to watch everything I put out. This is still a $3 to $5 trillion a day market that we are trying to go in and extract money from over and over again. Okay, it's not an overnight thing. But I am only at this point about 30 videos in, if you include the podcast videos, and things are already changing dramatically for traders all over the world. I get 3 or 4 emails a week saying this very thing. Either I have flipped their accounts from negative to positive, or they're finally just starting to see some real results for the first time in their trading careers. And we have so many videos to go, and that's a good thing, because you're just going to get better and better and better as we go along. So I don't want to hear any more fear about you losing your money or it's too hard to learn. The real fear, honestly, guys, is not doing anything. The biggest risk you can ever take is simply not taking any, because you could end up with no retirement money. You could end up just having to work the rest of your life. This is going to be the fate for most people. Most people from Generation X all the way down have absolutely nothing saved. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a much better than average chance that by the time you get to retirement age, Social Security is not going to be there either. And so just like you probably are now, relying on your boss or some company or your parents, get used to it, because you're always going to have to rely on others at some point. And that sucks. Nobody actually wants that. But that's the path that almost everybody is on. And when it really, really comes down to it, probably my biggest fear is dying with lots of regret, or should I say growing old with lots of regret, and having that regret hanging over your head. I was always the smart kid growing up when I was younger. And it was actually a little bit of a curse, because I always felt like, because of that, my entire identity was wrapped around, being the smart kid. And because of that, I always felt like I was destined to do really great things. But because of that, I was also entitled, and I never put in the work. Now, I figured it out later on in life, thank God. But even to this day, I always feel like I'm capable of really, really great things. And if I don't actually attempt them and follow through with them, then I've completely failed. And I can't get that back. And I can tell you right now, Forex trading does not draw in dumb people. I have a feeling that my story was very similar to a lot of yours in many ways. And I simply could not live with myself if I was 85 and my brain just wasn't there anymore. And there's nothing I could do, but I never actually tried. I never actually saw what I could really do. And all I ever did was just keep on working for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There's no way. I have always been capable of more. I still am capable of much more. And God damn it, we're going forward. We're going to jump on every chance we get, and we're going to see where it goes. Because the last question I ever want to ask myself is, what if? And that fear, that very fear, propels me every single day. All right, so after all I've said, if you still struggle with motivation and you still have fears in your way, I'd really rather you not be here. Unsubscribe. This is just not for you. If you can't even get this part right, you're really wasting your time on every other video. Why are you going to learn how to do something if you're never going to do it? You're much better served wasting your time elsewhere. Now, I will extend a bit of an olive branch here. If you are self-aware enough to realize that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to lie. I struggle with motivation. I struggle with fear, but I want to do better. I can help a little bit, I think, and I'm going to save it towards the end of the video, but we need to kind of stay in order here and move on, because most of you, I can already tell just by corresponding with a lot of you, and seeing that usually when I get a new subscriber, they binge on every single video I've done, that really makes me happy. I don't think most of you really struggle with this, but just understand, even if you had that initiative to get started and that part wasn't a problem, it is going to come into play again. You will need initiative more than once, probably more than twice in your trading career. All right, and we need to talk about that because I don't want you to get blindsided by it. So there's three main times that I can think of. The first one is just getting started, kind of what we've talked about up until now. I would say the majority of you watching this video probably have already crossed that hurdle. So many of you are demo trading right now, which is great. You should. But there will come a time where you need to transition into real money. And this is going to be a complete mindfuck because you can really kind of lay back and not even maintain demo trades if you didn't want to. And if you try to carry that logic over into transitioning to real money, you are going to get destroyed. It's watching your money go up and down in a real money account, knowing that is actually your money, really, really plays tricks on you. So just the fact of going from demo into real is going to be quite a jump, and you have to be ready to make that jump, and that's almost too much for some people. I know people who have demo traded for 5 years, and they're good. They don't demo because they're unsuccessful and they're still looking for something that works. No, they have something that works. They just don't want to make that transition because they're just not comfortable. When it really comes down to it, they're just not comfortable investing. They don't want to do it themselves. They want to hand it over to somebody else. And putting up your real money and actually trading with it is eventually going to be something you're going to have to do. And you're going to need to walk into that fire and somehow find a way to trade the exact same way you did when you traded during demo. Not going to be easy, but eventually something you're going to have to do. Now, in what episode was it? Episode 5 of my podcast. I told you there's a couple different ways to get there. You can trade your own money and hope that you can get a good enough return year after year to compound interest and get your retirement savings or your spending money, that way, however you want to do it. Or you can trade other people's money, whether it means setting up your own practice and trying to draw in clients, or take the route that I took and join up with a prop firm or a hedge fund or a big company. There's other ways to do this. But let me tell you, the mindset from here when you're demoing and here, 3 completely different things. And there's other psychological factors involved, but just the simple fact of getting there, making that leap and saying, okay, my real money's on the line now. Or making that leap and saying, okay, this is my chance. I'm going to make a big, bold attempt to go trade other people's money, knowing that they're going to test me, knowing that I'm going to be judged, and having to make that leap. Really, really tough in a lot of ways. But if you are going to be a professional someday, these are the routes you have to take. And when you do, or when you get ready to, just go back to that slide that we went to before when we talked about worst case scenario. The rewards for doing this and doing this, potential rewards, far outweigh any fears you might have of underperforming or even downright failing, because you can always try again. But for the love of God, at least give yourself a chance. Make sure that one of these 2 things is your end goal, and when the time comes, that you go for it. Because again, the real fear isn't going into one of these things and failing. The real fear is this shit right here. The real fear is in not taking that initiative. So, I did say, if you are wondering how you can up your initiative, how you understand yourself and you know that you're just not predisposed to take a lot of chances. I am not an expert in this field, but I can tell you some things that I did that really, really helped when the time came. Because I didn't grow up as a risk taker. I'm not a born risk taker. I was born rather sheltered, regular Midwestern kid. And where I grew up, you went to college, you got an entry-level job, you got married early, you had kids early, and then you just lived for them. And I didn't want that. And I also waited tables most of my adult life, and I didn't want that either. And so that alone, and I guess the fear of getting older and still doing all these things and having these crazy expectations on me to just kind of pack it in, motivated me, and I started reading. And the very first book that I read that really had a gigantic impact on me was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You guys might have read this one too. But I read it, and I kept saying to myself, holy shit, I'm poor dad. I was raised to be poor dad. And this is not a knock on my parents or where I grew up. This is just the mentality of where I was. And I don't think that's uncommon. But I learned that rich people do things completely different. And it's not because they start off rich. It's just because they have a completely different mentality and a totally different end game. And I said right away, okay, I've switched sides. I want to be rich dad, and I'll do whatever I have to take to get there. And then the very next book I read, I kind of got lucky reading this one first and then jumping into one that I've already talked about, the 4-Hour Workweek. This took a lot of those fears away because everybody, I think, has them growing up. We don't just say, okay, we're going to go full throttle now. We're going to do whatever it takes. No, we all have those fears in our way that we have to get over first. And the 4-Hour Workweek, especially the first 2 sections, I think there's 4 sections overall. And I think sections 3 and 4 are probably outdated here in 2018. So if you get this book, doesn't matter when you actually read it. I think those first 2 sections carry over for eternity. Such a good job of getting rid of those fears. So I was already in the right headspace, and now I'm in an even better headspace because now I'm going to do whatever it takes to get away from the life I have and get into the life I want. And I really don't think that if I didn't read those 2 books first, in that order, that I would have ever sought out the different avenues that I did, and I would never take the chances I did once I got there. So honestly, I know, entrepreneurial mentalities are different nowadays. Being an entrepreneur is actually cool. Back then it really wasn't. It was almost kind of looked down upon in a way. But so thought processes are a little different nowadays. But guys, no matter how old you are or how deep into this you are, I think those 2 books are absolute required reading, just to get yourself into that headspace and make sure that you never leave that headspace. And then after you're done with that, if you still need motivation on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis, Gary Vaynerchuk, there is none better. If you guys think I am direct and to the point, you are going to freak out when you see this guy. This guy pulls no punches whatsoever, and that's why I like him. But if you ever have one of those days where you're just feeling unmotivated, go to YouTube, type in Gary V motivation, and just let it run. If you don't feel motivated after that video, there is no hope for you. Now, you can get stuck in a rut of watching a video of his every single day, and even he recommends that you don't do that because then you're never actually going to act. But for the 10 of you out there that don't know who this guy is, definitely check him out too. I won't even link him down below. He's super easy to find. So, in conclusion, guys, I'm so done talking about this. This is something you either have or you don't. And if you don't have it, I showed you where to get it. And if you don't get it, please move on. And I mean that. Also, you will need it again. So just be ready. Don't let it catch you off guard. And when the time comes to make that move, make that move. This is the next logical step in your progression. Because in the end, the only thing to really fear is not doing anything. So like I said before, guys, this channel has everything you need. And trading psychology is supremely important, and nobody out there even bothers going over it for more than 5 minutes. And those people are doing you a giant disservice because trading psychology is super, super important. And this channel here will always make sure to have videos that you can refer back to if your own trading psychology starts to get in your way, because it will. It will for everybody. You are going to have those times where you're going to lack initiative or discipline or patience, and you're going to need something to refer back to, because even with the best trade entry system, with the best money management system, if your psychology isn't right, none of that stuff's going to matter, and you completely wasted your time learning it. And this is the only Forex trading channel that has your back in that regard too. So subscribe, hit the bell, binge on these videos, and take those steps, that initiative to becoming that killer Forex trader that you were meant to be the whole time. Go get it.